Let's not wait any longer. I want to talk about the future of user interaction. I'm very excited about the things that are going on in the world. I actually just yesterday I saw a post on X that was sharing a lighthouse score, and I remember a couple of years ago that used to be really common that people would share the lighthouse scores of the websites that they were building and things. And I realized it's been quite a while since we've really talked about that sort of thing because everything has shifted over to AI. And for better or worse, I know some of you are like, I kind of like the old Lighthouse days, but um, the new user interaction model is just so compelling and it's so interesting that I think that there's a reason that all of our dialogue has shifted over to this new frontier. So my talk is the future of user interaction with the subtitle Making It So Jarvis Can Do Stuff. So let's talk about Jarvis here really quick. Jarvis is just a rather very intelligent system. This comes from Iron Man, the comic book and movie series. And Tony Stark is Iron Man, and Tony Stark is a brilliant engineer who created an AI assistant to help him with all kinds of things. So, what does Jarvis do? Well, he's a personal assistant, managing schedule, handling communication, scheduling flights, all that stuff. Combat assistance, because of course he is a superhero and he's going to fight the bad guys. Um, he helps with system control, like managing the sprinklers and stuff, right? Emergency response, engineering support, research and analysis, and even companionship. Jarvis is a very personified AI assistant. And really, Jarvis does everything for Tony Stark. He's always there, ever present. And that's kind of what I want to talk about next is the experience that Jarvis offers. So Jarvis is a natural language experience. So Tony doesn't have to worry about different user interfaces or anything. He just talks to Jarvis. That said, Jarvis is also multimodal. So sometimes Tony is going to be interacting with the user interface. Lots of times he's going to be typing on his phone. Most of the time he's talking, just like he would talk to another person that's in the room. Sometimes Jarvis uses cameras to be able to see the environment. So Tony can just talk about, hey, what is that? And Jarvis knows exactly what he's talking about. Um, Jarvis gives immediate response, even if the task at hand requires some time. So Tony says, hey, could you do that overnight? And Jarvis is like, yep, I'll let you know in the morning. And that's the other thing is that Jarvis is proactive and says, hey, that thing that I was working on, it's done now. Here's what we can talk about now. Um, and even anticipates needs like, hey, there's somebody at the door. Maybe go and actually here's who it is because I've got facial recognition, which I don't know, maybe that's a little bit scary. but yeah, just very proactive experience. No configuration needed. In fact, Jarvis even writes programs to handle unique and interesting use cases, which we see simple use cases for things like that all the time now. And Jarvis is everywhere in his suit, in his car, in his house, everywhere that Tony is, he's got Jarvis with him. So he and it synchronizes across all of those different environments. So I think, as I was talking about, we used to talk a lot about browsers and websites, and now we're talking all about AI. And I think that this represents a paradigm shift where users don't want to use browsers and websites anymore. They want to talk to agents. They want to have an AI that can control things in the world. And the thing that is making this possible is MCP, Model Context Protocol. Um, so the ability to connect the services that you offer right now through websites and connect those to agents, that ability is made possible through MCP, which is a standard. We'll talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about what can Jarvis do that we cannot do. What is holding us back from this paradigm shift being complete? Why are we not already in that spot? So really nothing. There's nothing that Jarvis can do that we can't do, with the exception of like some of the holographic stuff and whatever. But pretty much everything that Jarvis can do, we can do. So the question is, why don't we already have Jarvis? Where is Jarvis? What's going on? And the fact is that we've actually tried. We've been trying to make a Jarvis-like experience for a really long time. The reason that we don't yet have Jarvis, though, is because of the integrations story is just so abysmal. If you've got Google over here and they've got their assistant, now they have to have some specific way for integrations to work there. So you've got the Google API over here, and then you've got Siri has its own, and Amazon's got its one, and Samsung's got theirs, and HomeKit, and like all of these different things. And there's so many wires that you have to wire up to get all of these services to talk to each other. And it is not fun. It's not fun. And taking it a step further, most of these logos are probably familiar to you, but I'm interested in going beyond just these like these really popular and big company things, and I'm interested in very localized solutions to these things. For example, I've got a municipality. My city has a website for reserving park pavilions. Like I've got a park across the street. There's a pavilion there. You can reserve that. So if my son says I want a birthday party at the park, then I can reserve that pavilion, and I can know that nobody else is going to be at that pavilion at the time we want to do the birthday party. And so the city has a website where I can do that. The early days of the web, they didn't have a website. You'd have to, I don't even know, like you call them, I guess. But over time, the web just became so ubiquitous and so everywhere that even the city built a website. But what made the web so ubiquitous was that the city didn't have to make a specific integration with the browser for this to work. The city built a website, and then every browser that supports the web is able to consume that website. And they don't have to talk to each other. Those teams don't have to integrate. And the reason that worked is because it's a standard. So my city didn't have to talk to Google and to Apple and to Mozilla to make sure that their website works on those browsers. Instead, we have a standard that can be used to communicate between these servers and clients that in such a way that as long as they're both building to the standard, they should work together. And so while it's great that we can make specific integrations, like GitHub can make a specific integration to work with Google's assistant, that's not going to work for everybody, because some of these, like my city, probably has just one developer working on the website. And so they can't just be building for every single possible integration. So what I want is I do want to be able to use these services, but I want a robot to manage the integrations for me. And that's what the Model Context Protocol is. So let's get a little history and overview of what MCP is, what the Model Context Protocol is all about, where it came from, and what it looks like. So here we've got our phase one. So early in the just like a couple of years ago, we had chat or LLMs that were just like any, you could use it if you had the technical know-how of running an LLM on some sort of cluster that you put together yourself, but it was really limited to like researchers and data scientists and whatever, until we had a change, and that change was a host application. ChatGPT showed up about 3 years ago, and it totally changed everything. It made it so that regular people had access to a large language model, and it could answer your questions. Um, the problem was that it couldn't actually do anything. So even though it could answer your question, and like lots of times your question, the answers were wrong, but it could answer those questions. It couldn't actually do anything in the world. So there was the knowledge cutoff date that you have to worry about and say, oh well, yeah, who is the current president of Uganda or something like whatever, and it wouldn't actually know who the current president is, or what the current state of affairs is anywhere. And so because it can't actually do anything, it's limited in its capability. Now, it's still really powerful and could help, especially with historical things in answering questions. And for myself and for all of us, using it to help us write code has just been a huge change to the way that we develop software. And in my mind, very positive change to the way that we develop software. And that's very exciting to me. But still, not being able to do anything means that I have to copy paste my code into ChatGPT or whatever. and it generates new code. I say fix the bug, and so it fixes the bug and maybe introduces three more, and then I copy those back into my code base. And that manual stuff is a big pain. And so here's where we get into phase two, where the host application says, okay, I'll tell you what, we will make it so that you can call tools. So we're going to build specific integrations with specific services, and then the LLM and the host application have some mechanism for communicating when the LLM decides it needs to call a tool to go get additional context or to perform some change in the environment. And with that, we go beyond just ChatGPT into IDEs like Cursor and Windsurf and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now these things can actually perform mutations or change things in the real world. The knowledge cutoff date doesn't matter as much because now you have a tool that can go get the latest information. And with that, now it can actually do stuff. And that is mind blowing. Super exciting stuff. The problem is it can't do enough because we still have the integration problem. OpenAI has their own way to integrate with ChatGPT, and Claude and Anthropic has their own way to integrate with Claude, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're still not to the Jarvis level where it unlocks us to be able to do just anything and to allow my municipality to expose their services of reserving pavilions for me to reserve for my kid's birthday party. So it can answer questions, and it's getting better at answering them accurately, in large part because of tool calling. It can do stuff because of tool calling, but we're still stuck because of integrations. And so now we get into phase three. This fixes the integrations problem in the same way that the web and the specification for the document object model, JavaScript, and CSS, HTML, in the same way that that opened up the World Wide Web for anybody to be able to expose their services to the internet. MCP is doing the same for agents. And so now we can do anything, and the clients that support this aren't super great necessarily. They're getting better all of the time, and in fact, even just in the last 6 months, it's not even been a year since MCP was released, but even in the last 6 months, the clients have gotten better and better, and they're just going to continue to do that until we get to a Jarvis level experience. And so what MCP does is it gives us the technology that we need, the standard that we need to be able to get to that Jarvis level experience, which we couldn't do before. So let's expand this a little bit to talk about how this works just a bit. The host application now will create an MCP agent for every MCP server that it wants to communicate with. Right now, most host applications allow the user to configure MCP servers that are installed, or they'll have some sort of marketplace sort of thing, like VS Code has an MCP registry that you can go and install MCP servers. So there's some mechanism for installing MCP servers, and the host application will create a client for each one that's installed. I believe in the future, it will be a lot more like the web, where you just say, hey, I want to do this thing, and then the host application will go find the appropriate server, so you don't have to necessarily install them. But once that client has been initialized and it tries to communicate with the server, then the server manages the communication with the different tools. And what makes this work is the fact that the MCP client and the MCP server are communicating over a standard protocol that works across different host applications. So any host application like ChatGPT or Claude or Cursor or Goose, or I'm going to show you one that's called Nanobot. Any of these should be able to communicate with any MCP server because it's a standard. So the service provider is in charge of the server, and that's what makes this scale so well. So now my municipality, just like they have a website, they can also build an MCP server and expose that to agents. So you've got the website for humans, and then you have the MCP server for agents. And I think that eventually humans aren't going to go to the website anymore. They'll just use their agent, and the agent will talk to the MCP server. I'm not sure how long it will take before we get to that point. It depends on how good this host application gets as far as that experience goes. But I do expect that to be the case, and that's what I'm betting all of my time and attention on. So I want to show you a demo. I have a backup video here just in case this demo doesn't go well. But here's a application. I'm calling it Jarvis. This allows me to talk to an LLM, and it's loaded up with a handful of MCP servers that I think are useful. So here I'm going to ask it, could you please write a journal entry for me today? And here it's going to get the current date and time. It's going to get my location. It's going to search through my memories. It's going to add, create a memory for me. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and save that in my Epic Me journal, please. And it's interesting here. We started off in Prague because my current location, I decided I didn't want to dox myself, and so I hard coded that in the MCP server. But we'll look at what this stuff is doing here in just a second. Yeah, here, check with my memory for my current email address. And yeah, my email address. See, no, check memory. I put it in your memory. You should be able to check the memory for it. There we go. Okay, awesome. Sweet. So now it's saying, okay, you can authenticate. Go check your email. Turns out I actually have my email address, or like it should be able to access my email. Why don't you check my email, please? And it's going to read the recent email. It's going to validate the token. So now I'm logged in. It's going to create that entry. Sweet. Um, could you show me that entry, please? Boom, there's my entry. And we're not worry about that. This is, things are still in progress here. But let's walk through this conversation and see what happened through all of this stuff. So the thing I want to point out right up front is that Nanobot, this is a project built that by actually a friend of mine that supports most of MCP and also MCP UI, which we saw some of in that demo as well. It's really, really cool. And what's especially cool about Nanobot is that it allows you to make an MCP server, put an agent around it, and then that agent actually also exposes an MCP server with a tool called Chat. And so you could build an agent for your internal company that users can chat with, and then that user could then hook their agent up with your agent. This is very much like a have your people call my people kind of experience. It's super, super cool. So that's what I'm using here. And I could wire this up in Claude or ChatGPT or anywhere else, and it would be able to do all of these things too, which I think is pretty neat. So here it's getting my current date time. It's getting my current location. It searches through my memories because it doesn't know, like, what do I mean? What happened today? And it looks like it failed to find that because it looks for journal, which doesn't make any sense that it would do that. So we need to improve the way that it handles memory. And yeah, we'll worry about that later too. So then it decides to add a memory, to create a memory based off of my current location. So that's fine. I wasn't very specific anyway. And I said, okay, create that entry, but it fails because I haven't authenticated yet. And so it says, okay, well, I told it to check my memory for my email address, and it tries to call who am I on the Epic Me MCP server, which it's like, no, you need to go on authenticate. Okay, I don't have it. Check memory. And then here, now it's like, okay, there's your email address. And so then it calls the authenticate tool on Epic Me, and the authenticate tool returns UI. And so here it's like, here, this is what that authenticate tool returned. So what's neat about this is that we're used to users just having to chat through things, and text being the input and output mechanism. But just like with Tony Stark, not always is talking the best interface. Sometimes Tony actually wants to have an interface that's specific to the task at hand. And that's what MCP UI enables. So I think that even generative UI has a place in this future as well. But like very fine-tuned specific experiences makes a lot of sense. And we have that capability already. So I could have checked my email and put my token in here, but it has the ability to read my recent emails. And so it read that and boom, there's the token right there. Okay, great. So we'll validate the token and then it creates the entry and that entry works. And then I said, hey, show me the entry. And here's MCP UI again. This is running local dev server and that's broken right now. So that's why we're getting stuff like this. But yeah, so then it can show me my entry. And again, it could just show that to me with text. Man, this is super annoying. But instead, we create a specific UI that has a nice look and feel that's branded to us. Like if you're Uber, you probably don't want people who ask for a ride to somewhere to think that what they're getting is a lift. You want to like show them a map that shows where the car is and it has the little Uber logo. You want to have some control over that experience. And MCP does not take away from that. It simply is taking what you have with the your UI or with your services and exposing that to an agent. But ultimately, in most cases, it's a user who's going to be experiencing that. And so sometimes the best output is text. Sometimes the best output is UI, and this UI is interactive. Let's see if I can make this work. Actually, let's try to reload. Okay, cool. So then I can say delete entry, confirm, and boom. Now I'm actually saying, hey, are you sure you want to delete that? Yeah, let's accept that, and we'll delete the entry. And so that UI actually is interactive. And there are some clients that actually will have the UI be kind of a sidecar to the conversation. So it doesn't end up being a whole bunch of pieces of UI as we go, but instead a persistent UI over on the side. And then you're chatting over here and that UI is updating, which I think is pretty cool. So anyway, there's a demo. Actually went better than I expected. But yeah, just shout out to Ido and Leon for putting together MCP UI. I think that's a really important piece to all of this, to making the best user experience possible. So with that, I'm getting close to the end here. Excited to answer any questions that you have about this. But we've got a lot of clients already that support MCP. All of the right players are playing in this game. And that's the important thing when it comes to a standard. There are so many standards or things that people call, anybody can call anything a standard. Um, an important key to that is that it's an open standard with a good governance model, which MCP has. It was created by Anthropic, but now has a steering committee that is comprised of mostly non-Anthropic employees. And all of the right players are there. ChatGPT is there, or OpenAI is participating. Amazon, Microsoft, all of and Google, all playing in this space to make this as good of an experience as possible. And so there's really, really good buy-in. There are tens of thousands of quality servers, well, varying degrees of quality, and that's something that I'm trying to help with is teaching people how to build quality servers for this. One criticism that I've heard recently is that MCP is the one technology where there are more builders than users. And I was thinking about that this morning. People like to joke about that. And my thought is, when you're building a road, you don't have very many users on that road. And so we are very, very early on this new user interaction model. It's completely changing the way that users are interacting with things, and they want to do that. And like, I don't know about you, but I Google a lot less. I just go straight to an AI assistant and ask my questions there because it's just so much faster. And with the tools that it has now, it's able to give me really, really useful information. It hallucinates a lot less. And actually being able to do things in the world is a really nice evolution to that. And MCP is right at the center of that. So this is the future that I'm looking forward to. This is what I want to experience. I want to just talk to my agent and have the agent do the hard stuff of talking to all the other services. Um, I do have a couple of resources to share with you. So the model context protocol specification is actually a pretty good read as far as specifications go. So you can take a look at that. I also have written a whole bunch of stuff on epicai.pro, where I'm producing all the content I am about MCP and AI in general. Feel free to dive into any of those subjects if they look interesting to you. I'm actually in the middle of a cohort. Today is actually the second to last day of this cohort, teaching people MCP with a whole bunch of like everything you really need to know about building MCP servers. And so it's too late to join this cohort, but go to Epic AI Pro and sign up, and you'll be notified when we start the next cohort. It's really been awesome. I've got really good workshops there. With that, I am done. I just want to tell you that you're all great. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a really great time at the rest of this event.
That was a great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There were a couple of questions in the chat, so without I would love to do some chit chat, but let's get some questions on.
Sure.
Paul,
you may take them. All right, cool. Hey, before I gotta say thank you for testing library.
Oh, you're welcome.
Doesn't exist in the world of Python. Accessibility-based testing doesn't exist. This weekend, I asked Claude Code to port it to Python, and it did.
Wow.
I had to do a lot of coaching, but it was a revelation for me.
Oh, okay, that is cool.
First up.
Sorry, I've dimmed my
No problem.
my
what are the drawbacks to automatically building the MCP server over an existing API?
Yeah, so this is actually really it's fitting that this is the first question, because this is honestly the first question that a lot of people ask. And the answer is it would take me a bit more time to really dive deep into this. And so actually, if you can bring up my screen again, I have a friend of mine who posted about this pretty recently. And I'm going to see if I can find somebody liked it again. So I saw it in my yeah, right here. So you want to find Alex Booker. I'll put this somewhere. But this is a really good deep dive into why that is so problematic. But like the simple answer to that question is MCP is basically a website for agents. And when we build websites, we don't just give users a long list of forms and links to click to get like data or whatever. We typically are going to structure things in a way that allows the user to explore and not get too much context all at once, because that can be confusing. Often when on your website, you have a button, and hidden behind that button is like 3 or 4 API calls. And if those are not called in the right order or whatever, then bad things can happen to your backend. Really unpredictable and confusing things. Agents, maybe eventually they will get so good that they will just deterministically call the same thing and do it the exact right thing. I doubt that ever will actually occur. And so if given that we want to have a more curated and intentional experience for the agent. And so Alex talks about this better than I ever have. So yeah, give that video a watch.
I'll give another answer and put words in your mouth. It's like testing library, where you're testing based on how people will use the page, not on how it's structured. And you may want your MCP to present itself differently on the outside than the API is represented internally.
Yes,
exactly. Or maybe not. I don't know. But it sounds like a fun way to put it. Okay, next question.
It helps me a lot to think about the agent as a human, and like what makes it easier. And like, I want to be totally clear. AI will never be human. I am very firm about that. But thinking about it as a human helps a lot with the right way to go about thinking how to use these things.
We actually had an internal blog post about what we're doing with ACP. Do you want to talk about this?
ACP, are you talking about the
agent control protocol?
Okay, because Shopify and OpenAI just came out with Agent Commerce Protocol, which of course is not confusing at all. Yeah, so there was actually a really good talk at the MCP Dev Summit in San Francisco by Laurie Voss. Let me see if I can find that. Voss, MCP is all you need, I think is what it was called.
Okay.
Or no, it's MCP versus ACP versus A2A. And then he like brought a whole bunch of others into the mix. Yeah, so take a look at or go look that up. It goes into all of the different protocols, and effectively MCP covers the use cases of them all pretty much, and can evolve to fill in any of those gaps. Having more than one protocol for things sometimes makes sense. But can you imagine if we had, like, for example, for internet communication, we do have HTTP and we also have WebSockets, and so like it does make sense to have more than one protocol in for doing similar things. Imagine if we had 15 different protocols that you had to address when you're building a website. Like, that would be a pretty bad experience. And so I think it does make sense that we explore these different protocols. But when you can see that there's kind of a coalescing around one as kind of the de facto winner, as long as there aren't fractures in the foundation, then you should probably just push behind that and fill the gaps that there are.
I apologize to everyone. This is going to have to be the last question so that we can stay on time. But if you want more answers, get in a cohort with Kent.
Yeah.
And you'll get a lot more. Okay, last one, because it uses the word semantic, and I'm a sucker for that.
Sorry, you're going to have to read it to me. I can't see it very
Is there
well.
a bridge for AI to understand a REST API? Not just how to use the service from a technical detail, but more like semantic dependencies.
So I mean, you could there's not currently anything quite like that. So this is going beyond just like, here's a REST API, here's some code that turns that REST API into MCP server. But you're saying like more semantic. And if you were to document your API super duper well, and then you used some model maybe that's specially tuned for understanding that really well, and it coded up an MCP server, then yes, I suppose that sort of thing could work. I haven't seen anybody do that to any degree of success, so I can't speak to that specifically. But anything's possible, I guess.
All right.
But I think even if you do that, like, imagine if we had the same idea around building a website with React or something like that, or whatever technology you use to build websites. There's a reason that you don't just say, oh, I'll just have the AI do the entire thing, right? Like, you need to have some good understanding and knowledge of what's going on under the hood to be able to review those PRs and stuff. It's the exact same thing with MCP. You need to have some good understanding of how it works so that even though you are using AI to help you build it, you can fine tune that solution.
I'll make one small correction. You said everything is possible. Everything is fundable.
Yeah, fair point.
Thank you so much for being here, for the great talk, for answering the question. Really appreciate you. I do want to use this moment while you're still here to plug the raffle that we're about to start for Epic React, which is quite literally the way I learned React 6 years ago. Something like that.
Wow, yeah. Man, yeah, so I updated Epic React just last year, and it's awesome. You should definitely take a look at the latest version of the workshop experience and everything. It's completely improved in every way. But Epic React is tens of thousands of people have learned React with Epic React. It's, as far as I'm aware, the most comprehensive and exercise focused, like hands on the keyboard focused workshop series on the internet. So thank you, JetBrains, for sponsoring that. I think that's super cool.
Glad to be able to do that. So everyone who has not done that yet, join the Discord, click on that tada thing. I learned that. That's how you participate in the raffle. And the tada thing right under the message, not the reaction. That's confusing. That's on me. Discord is confusing. Thank you again. And I hope to have you back one year. or next
Thank
year
you
or
so
a
much.
year.
Appreciate that very much. Take care.